9. On right now, the New Zealand International Film Festival making its way from Auckland and around the country. A whole bunch of films in there, and of course there's the incredibly strange section as well. One of the films that's featured is called The Innkeepers. I managed to catch it yesterday ahead of the screening, which is later on today. And the director, who's just flown in to Auckland City, is Ty West, and he joins me in the Kiwi studio this morning. Ty, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you. You come from LA?
I've come from Los Angeles. It took me 2 tries to get here. The first plane was struck by lightning.
Crikey dick. We're just out of Los Angeles?
I don't know. I think it might have gotten struck by lightning here. But either way, there was no plane for me to get on, so
probably here, I'd say.
They had to get another plane from New Zealand, which took 15 hours. So I showed up at the airport, and they were like, "There's no plane.
Man,
go home."
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry on behalf of New Zealand and in New Zealand.
That's right.
I apologise.
I'm blaming you for acts of God.
Yeah. But good to have you here. Really nice to see your film. It's made its way through the South by Southwest movie section as well, hasn't it?
That was our world premiere, and we went from there to some other regional festivals in the States, the Los Angeles Film Festival, and then I think this is our first, international, as it were, festival. And I've never been here, so I'm really excited to finally be down here.
Now, we should mention that it fits into the horror genre, I suppose, and it features the last 2 employees of the old haunted The Yankee Peddler Hotel, which is to close its doors in the near future, and things start happening on that final weekend. For the 2 employees who, I guess, are rather fascinated with the strange and the unusual, the ghostly happenings, I suppose?
Yes, ghostly happenings is a good way to put it. I mean, they're 2 nerds, who work these kind of part-time desk jobs, and they try to make themselves, they try to make it more interesting by sort of kind of being these low-budget ghost hunters.
Yeah. I'm always interested in trying to figure out, okay, what's the timing of it? When was it set? And one clue for me was, well, it must have been in the late 90s because of the websites that they end up browsing. Look like an old MySpace sort of type website from the late 90s.
They are terrible, but it actually is present day. It's just that his skills at web design are subpar. So, he hasn't quite graduated out of animated GIFs and frames just yet.
And under construction banners.
That's right. but it is nowadays.
Yeah. So it's obviously a film that is heavily referential to, I guess, your influences for the genre.
Yeah, the weird thing about this film in particular is it's kind of a weird personal film in the sense that when we made my previous film called The House of the Devil, we stayed at this actual hotel called the Yankee Peddler, and we would drive about it was about a half-hour drive to the place where we made our satanic horror movie at this house in the middle of nowhere, but we'd always come back at night and stay in the Yankee Peddler.
Huh.
And weirder things would happen at the hotel than would happen when we were making our satanic movie.
What kind of things?
Ghost things.
Yeah?
The place really is, allegedly, as they say, haunted. There really is a guy at the front desk who has a ghost hunting website and believes it. The whole town believes it. The place is a weird mixture of this kind of brilliant 1800s historic architecture and terrible 70s renovation.
Yeah.
And everything is just built a little off. And so it's one of the strangest places I've ever been. So I wrote this movie specifically about the experiences that I had while making The House of the Devil.
Almost like it was gifted to you.
Almost. And so then we went back to the exact same place and lived and made the movie there. So it was a really kind of odd personal, journey, if you will.
What did the owners think about you doing that?
They thought it was great. That was when I called the producer and said, I have this idea for a movie and it takes place at the Peddler, but I don't even want to make it anywhere else, so if we can't get the Peddler, then the movie doesn't exist. He's like, well, I'll call her, see what she says. And she was psyched, and they were really supportive of the whole. They're still supportive to this day. So.
Is there some truth to the backstory about a woman being murdered there? And
no, I mean, I made the ghost lore up. They have their own ghost story that's probably similar, because all womanly ghost stories seem to be similar, but the particular one in the movie I made up myself.
Yeah, okay. What has influenced you through your own personal habits of movie watching? What's influenced you in the making of this one?
This is like my 5th feature, my 5th horror feature. All my movies are kind of horror-ish. They're not a lot. This movie has a lot of comedy in it, I think.
I think a lot of people would be familiar with Cabin Fever 2 being one of the ones.
Yes, that is a dramatic story, though. That, I've made so many horror movies in such a short period of time that I'm almost kind of running out of steam with it and ready to try something else. But for me, this other filmmaker named Larry Fessenden, he produced all my early films, and he makes horror films himself. And there's very kind of like, art horror movies, or as he calls them, B movies with A ideas. And so I come up out of a very like New York kind of underground, kind of punk rock filmmaking establishment. And so. I've been making these very indie horror movies that are interesting to me, and I've worked with the same people on all of them. So for me, it's more of a lifestyle than it is a career.
Okay, really, lifestyle.
It seems that way, yeah.
Yeah. The stock that it's filmed on seems to be it gives it a real old school kind of flavour, almost a Shining type aesthetic to it. Was that on purpose?
I wouldn't say the stock was. I would say that it's as soon as you put a steady cam in a hallway in a hotel, it's really hard not to evoke The Shining. And
but there's something about the lighting as well. It's a bright and yet soft sort of lighting.
Yeah, I guess it's not particularly like, for instance, The Shining is one of the scariest movies ever, and the look of the film, other than being really symmetrical and the color palette. There's nothing particularly scary. Like, they're never in dark rooms. It's always in a very matter-of-fact environment. And so, to some degree, we took the same approach. I don't think we took the approach based on The Shining as much as we were like, well, it's a working hotel, so they would never turn the lights off.
Yeah.
So it would be weird if, like, all of a sudden it was really spooky. It felt bogus to do that. So we tried to keep it as realistic as possible. But yeah, certainly The Shining is, it's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah. And also I noticed, rather than shying away from some of the cliches of horror and the way that people get scared when they're watching, like sudden frights and things like that, you've embraced them. Is there a risk in doing that sometimes?
Well, most of my movies don't do that. So I'm almost doing it in this movie, those sort of jump moments. They're more like jump jokes than they are scares. I mean, they're kind of I don't really like self-aware filmmaking, but I would say it's about as self-aware as I get, because I always get criticized as making these movies that just go, oh, they're so slow-paced, and everyone likes to use the term slow burn in America, and everyone's like, oh, I had this slow burn approach, that builds, and I'm always thinking, I didn't think it was that slow. So because everyone says there isn't those things, this movie has a little bit of a comment on. I have more of those jump moments, but they're all a little satirical.
Yeah. Would you prefer that rather than people jump out of their skin and run into the room, they're actually maybe jump out of their skin and then start laughing?
In this movie particularly, yes. I mean, because I think all of the scares in this movie don't have those moments, but there are a lot of those moments that are they're like misdirections. But when the actual real scary stuff shows up, I think it's much more restrained. So I liked kind of flipping it that way, whereas most people would do it the other way around. Most movies, if there's something scary, they hit you over the head with music cues and things like that. And I tried to, let that stuff play a little more realistic. So
I'm sure this movie's going to get a legion of fans all around the world, and also, I suppose, create some kind of hype around that hotel, where a lot more people are probably going to want to go stay there in the place where this was filmed.
That would be cool if people did. I mean, I think they'd appreciate it. They could use the business. But
has anyone from the hotel seen the finished?
I don't know. I'd like to think that the owner has, but I don't know.
It's a strange name for a hotel.
It is.
What is a peddler?
I think it's. I don't know. I think the peddler is like, because it's not peddler like someone peddling their goods. It's peddlar, and it means something different. It seems like this is a terrible interview moment. I should have known that. It seems like that's something I should research for the future.
It's just the name of the hotel, but it just struck me as it's the peddler, the Yankee peddler.
It would factor in. To be honest, because everyone always jokes and calls it the peddlar, or the Yankee pedophile, whichever you prefer. Someone must have seen it, but we haven't screened. That's in Connecticut, and we haven't screened on the East Coast yet, other than Philadelphia. So I don't know if they've made the trip to see it.
So pretty exciting to come down under. Is it your first time? Or?
First time, very exciting.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great. Well, it's really good to have you here at the New Zealand International Film Festival. It's screening tonight. Time?
8:30 at Sky City Theatre. And tomorrow at 3:15.
Awesome.
Same theatre.
And make sure you go book your tickets, and you can find out other screening times as well, all up at nzff.co.nz. Ty West has been my guest. He's the director of the Innkeepers. And as I say, lovely to have you here. And hope you managed to find out where you are, and what time of the day it is. So.
I'll get some caffeine and be all right. Thank you for having me. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.